good morning to everyone. I'm Dr. Sanjay Bhattacharya. I'm currently working as an assistant professor at the School of HRM in XIM University. Prior to this, I was an assistant professor at Symbiosis Centre for Management and Human Resource Development for the past 9 years. And before that, I had worked in corporate HR with organizations like Genpact and Videocon Industries for 5 years. So in total, I have 15 plus years of experience. I teach courses in human resource management, various courses like change management, performance management. I've been publishing research papers in this domain. I enrolled for my PhD a little late, way back in 2018. I got registered, and my doctoral degree just got awarded from Symbiosis International University this year. On the 9th of December, I got my doctoral degree. My areas of interest lie, so I'm a certified emotional intelligence coach. So my areas of interest lie in emotional intelligence, emotional labor. In fact, my doctoral dissertation was on emotional labor in the hospitality industry. Why hospitality? Because I have a background in hotel management. I did my graduation from IHM Bhubaneswar in hotel management. So I chose that area, and that's pretty much about me. I actively remain involved in research and conducting various training programs and workshops for our corporate clients. And that's how, that is it all about me. And I'm really looking forward to the presentation today. So I'll start. So sir, how much time will I be allotted? I'll time my presentation accordingly.
I think it is say maximum 30 to 35 minutes, followed by 10 minutes question answer.
All right, sir. I'll pace it accordingly. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm deeply indebted to everyone who have taken out time to hear me out and shortlisting me for this final round. Thank you very much. So my doctoral dissertation was on emotional labor. The title is Emotional Labor, a Phenomenological Study of Hospitality Industry in India. To set the context, I'll give a brief about the current state of hospitality industry in India. So post-COVID-19, the hospitality industry and the travel and tourism industry in India has seen a massive windfall, so to say, with the forex earnings and the year-on-year gain in the sales revenue, the RevPAR, the revenue per allotted room, everything has gone up to a great extent. So hospitality industry is pretty much getting back onto the field all over again. Now, when we talk about hospitality, I'm sure we all have experienced this, that whenever we go into a hospitality establishment, we expect hospitable service, which means we will be greeted with a smile. We will be dealt with in the most polite manner possible each and every time wherever we go. So, the individuals who are actually delivering those hospitality services to us, it is an expectation onto them that they will have a very calming and a hospitable disposition. That is exactly what emotional labor is all about, which means, and it has been, the term has been coined by Ali Hochschild in her seminal work in 1983, wherein she has said that emotional labor is managing one's own feelings to create a publicly observable facial and bodily display. In a sense, you suppress your felt emotions and express unfelt emotions in line with the organizational expectation. Okay, so that is the basic idea of emotional labor. Good or bad, right or wrong, it is definitely dependent on the context of the organization, but one has to do it. Right? I have just mentioned a couple of, I would like to mention that, employees frequently need to put forth some effort or the other, or the labor, to bring about a congruence between their initial emotions and their current emotional state in line with what the organization expects out of them. And from the literature, we have seen that, many companies hold the opinion that a happy face immediately improves the sales and encourages repeat business. It also has a high degree of direct proportionality to revenue and word of mouth publicity. So that's why emotional labor becomes a very important component in this entire paradigm of hospitality. Hospitality organizations associate objectives like customer satisfaction, their intent to return, and positive word of mouth publicity, as I've already said. From the customer side, their view of the quality of the service is frequently influenced by their interaction with the business as well. Now, emotional labor has been studied ever since 83. Lot of work has gone into emotional labor, wherein the antecedents of emotional labor, the consequences of emotional labor have been studied, and it is still being studied. And its association with various factors like job satisfaction, stress, intent to attract, and all these things have been very deeply studied. These are some of the seminal works that I have quoted here from Ashworth and Alicia Grandy. However, while thinking about emotional labor, while researching on emotional labor, what I found is that this is a conceptual model that I had created, which I have already stated, that the hospitality service organization, on your left-hand side, ladies and gentlemen, you will see these are the antecedent factors that contribute to an hospitality service organization creating an organizationally desired emotion or behavior, which is at the center. And towards your right, you will see the positive and the negative consequences of emotional labor. Now, this has been studied fairly well up until now. However, at the very core of it is the employee, the individual who is actually going through emotional labor, going through the lived experience of emotional labor, and they are continuously interpreting emotional labor in their life world. Okay, so that is something that has not been studied in detail, and that's where I thought that this is the area that needs to be looked into, because that can give us a deeper depth of understanding with respect to how do they assign a meaning to emotional labor in their life world. And that's why I chose a phenomenological study to conduct this particular research, because there I wanted to look at the lived experience of the individual employee of going through emotional labor through deep acting and surface acting. So these are the two things. So basically through emotional labor, we are acting it out, okay? Because I'm suppressing my inner feelings, expressing the organizationally approved feeling. So in doing so, either I resort to deep acting or surface acting. That is what lived experience. And then of course, the positive and the negative consequences. I'll just move on to the concept of phenomenology. Now, phenomenology is not a very new concept. It has been prevalent. However, research in phenomenology is still in its relative nascency in the Indian context and globally as well. However, a lot of effort are being made to bring in phenomenology into the folds of management studies as well. Just to give a brief understanding, the father of phenomenology, Edmund Husserl, he said that it is an understanding of human knowledge that would be best based upon an understanding of consciousness by using critical reflection and description. Basically, phenomenology is the study of a phenomena, emotional labor in this context, and in this study, studying phenomena in the context of hospitality industry, wherein we are looking at the lived experience. What is the aim of this study? Very simply put, attain deeper understanding of the nature or meaning of the everyday experiences, and from there gain insightful description of the way the world is experienced by these employees who are living through emotional labor. That is the fundamental basis. The epistemological and the ontological continuum, which should definitely be on every researcher's mind. So this is where it is. So there is always a dichotomy when we are talking about the ontological continuum, whether it's realist or relativist. So that determines our epistemological grounding, whether I'm looking at social constructionism or positivist. Now, when I talk about the phenomenological approach in this particular research of mine, it obviously veers towards the right. It's more based on social constructivism, because the ontological context is all about relativist or personally built universe. Moving on. Significance of this study, I would like to highlight. So aspects of emotional spillover, the intent to conserve the prized resources and its sheer dominance in the overall behavior of the employees can inspire further research. I will delve deeper. I just wanted to give a brief summary right in the beginning. Interpretation of emotional labor through the lens of self-concept and self-image paradigm is going to provide a ground for further research, because that is an area which remains a major gap in the study of EL. Effective realism and its effect on the interpreting abilities of the individual as far as EL is concerned is also something that can be, that actually it's a major plug that can be kept. Organizational silence and the entire institution of organizational silence, its bi-directional nature, is something that has clearly come up from this study. And that definitely, in fact, I am doing detailed research on organizational silence and its bi-directional nature, because that is something that has come up. Whenever we talk about organizational silence, we are only looking at the employee's perspective. But from this research, a definitive proof has come up that it is bi-directional in nature. And another significance is the perception of EL and its consequences, along with the coping mechanism. So these are some of the significance of the study. So the basic research question, just like any other phenomenological study, it is about the lived experience of emotional labor among employees in the hospitality service organization. The objectives are twofold: to understand emotional labor through the lived experience and to understand the life world, both work and personal life of the individual employees. The research method. So every phenomenological research method is all about hermeneutics. So the double hermeneutic underpinning is what prompts a good phenomenological study. So it is an inductive study wherein there are two levels of interpretation that happens. So first level of interpretation, or the first hermeneutic cycle, was when my respondents were interpreting their experiences and narrating it out to me. That was the first hermeneutic cycle. And the second in there was the individual interpretation that I, as a researcher, was continuously interpreting their interpretation. So that is the double hermeneutic underpinning that was very much predominant in this particular study, in line with the phenomenological philosophy. The philosophical underpinning of this particular study, isolating the truth as is experienced by a participant, number one. Number two, from a phenomenological perspective, conducting research is always about questioning the way we experience the world. And why do we do that? To want to know the world in which we live as human beings. My interpretation of emotional labor and the lived experience of emotional labor of somebody else, I need to question that. And that is the philosophical underpinning that was going. And also depart from a surveyor observer stance and be a participation in the co-construction of a collective consciousness. So, being a participative element is also a key philosophical underpinning of the phenomenological process. I move on to the sampling bit. I have given a brief understanding of what the literature talks about with respect to a phenomenological study and its sampling. So purposive sampling technique was used to select individuals who have undergone and experienced the circumstances. So various inclusion criteria were put in place. For example, employees with greater than or equal to 5 years of experience in a 4 or 5-star hotel or upmarket restaurant or full service airline with overseas operation. 12 co-researchers were interviewed. Why I say co-researcher? Because it is a term that is rampantly used in phenomenological research, because it is a term that emphasizes the voluntary and the cooperative nature of the researcher with a shared interest in illuminating the phenomena. So the other person doesn't remain a mere respondent, but becomes a co-researcher for me as well. However, 12 people were interviewed, whom the purpose of the present study carried personal relatedness. However, 2 of them chose to back out and they revoked their consent. So I had to go ahead with 10. Now 10 respondent, again, that serves the purpose as far as phenomenological research is concerned. And we, I shouldn't be talking about saturation, but we did find some saturation after the 8th interview that we conducted. There's a lot of symbolic interactionism that was also prevalent. So this is a brief profile of my respondents. All of their name and identities have been masked in order to maintain the security. So the interview questions were exploratory and open-ended in nature. They were spread across 4 key sections. Section 1 aimed to comprehend the participants' entry and continued employment in the hospitality business, basically their motivation behind it. Section 2 spoke about understanding how they perceived emotional labor and how they perceived its importance in the area of hospitality service. Section 3 was entirely focused on their interpretation of the lived experience. And section 4, the emphasis was on comprehending how the participants dealt with the varied effects of EL and what they anticipated from their organization as to how their organization should respond or take care of that. So this is how the interview questions were done. Data analysis was done through excuse me, data analysis was done by using a method called IPA, Interpretative Phenomenological Analysis, IPA. A predominant methodology as far as hermeneutic phenomenology is concerned. Descriptive phenomenology has a different way of data analysis, but in here, it was IPA. It was used to gain deeper understanding. An ideographic approach was used to understand the in-depth uniqueness of the experience. And so I came up with each basis ideography. I came up with individual case analysis, and then a group corpus of commonly emergent patterns of thoughts were derived by clubbing the codes together. Now, data analysis and interpretation was divided into two sections. So the first section, all 10 cases are narrated individually, wherein I have tried to introduce the readers to the life world of the individual participant. And then in the second subsection, I have provided a collective narrative of the commonly emergent patterns of thought. I think I will, in the interest of time, I will stick to the second subsection only, wherein I can actually give you an idea about the commonly emergent thought processes that have come across. Section 1, I'm going to skip because this is about the individual participants. So I'll just skip the 10 cases. This is just a representation of how I have analyzed it in my thesis. I'm moving on to the group corpus. So let me just take you through the group corpus. This is the subsection 2. Section 2, collective narrative of commonly emergent patterns of thought, or the superordinate themes. Okay. Before that, let me just enumerate the process. So every case transcript was read multiple times, in line with the phenomenological methodology as has been charted.
Sanjay, Nathan here.
Sir?
Don't read out every single line out here. I can read all this myself.
Okay, I'll just give a summary.
Just explain what the process is. That is more meaningful.
All right. So basically, the process started with reading all the transcripts over and over again, and then the codings were done. The individual lines were grouped into codes and themes. From the codes, we created the themes for every transcript. And once that was done, then we created the all the sub-themes together. From the sub-themes, we created the superordinate theme. I will give you a visual representation of the process that I followed. So on the left-hand side, you would see the notes were taken with respect to every transcript. From the notes, I created the codes for the individual cases. And from there, I created the subordinate themes. Now, once the subordinate themes were created, this is how the subordinate themes look like. From here, I derived the 8 superordinate themes on which I'm going to talk about. So the first, the first element basically talks about the flexibility bit. In this, you would see that's theme 1. It basically talks about the flexibility with emotional transition. So here, basically what I derived is that as an individual, one needs to remain very flexible with respect to the transition of emotional state from, because here, as has been mentioned, that, it is about suppressing one's felt emotions and expressing their organizationally approved emotion. So in order to ensure a standardized experience for the guest, in whichever hotel they go to or whichever establishment they go to under the umbrella, everybody, all the employees need to have a flexibility with emotional transition, or else it will become very tough for them to survive in the whole EL paradigm. So that is one of the themes that came up. Then moving on, the second theme, that was basically about the nature of emotional labor as a whole. I could not get any collective consensus with respect to what exactly it is. For some, it was like there was a lot of ambivalence that I could see. Pardon me. Occasionally, people would say that, yes, it has positive consequences. It has given me a lot of self-esteem. By being nice to my guest, I actually get a lot of appreciation from the guest. However, many of them were also stating, and they were also stating that, just the fact that it is being imposed on us, that seems like a troubling element. So I feel it is kind of an enigma, an imperious enigma, which has a lot of ambivalence laden into it. That was coming across. So there was no collective consensus with respect to how they interpret the nature of emotional labor. That came out as an important theme in this process. Then moving on, the third theme was about emotional spillover. Now, it has been stated, it has been researched many a time that emotional spillover does happen. If you have a bad experience at work, and if it hits you at the emotional level, then you may carry it forward to your home. So that is what emotional labor, or a bad experience at home. So say, for example, if somebody is ill at home, if they're not keeping well, and you have to come to work and you have to put up a smiling disposition, that may be a bit of a challenge. And the constant worry that someone is sick at home is going to have a spillover effect. Now, the spillover effect is definitely an offshoot of effective realism, as we could find out. Effective realism, again, is the element that, as of now, what is affecting my emotional state of being? That will determine. So, for example, if I have a headache, and then and if someone is playing music, the music will become very much intolerable for me because of the headache. So that is what effective realism. So emotional spillover, yes, it is there in the EL paradigm, but at the same time, what causes the spillover is majorly the element of effective realism, is what we have found out. Then the fourth theme was the dominance of the intent to conserve the resources. Now, this was very interesting that I came across. Now, many of my respondents or the co-researchers, they were 10th pass or 12th pass students who did not have much of opportunity. So they thought, okay, fine, getting into the hospitality is very easy because my family members were there. Now, why in course of their last 8 to 10 years of working in here, they were like, we don't have any other qualification, so we cannot go out anywhere else. We'll have to be here. So whatever is the treatment meted out to me, I will have to accept it. Now, why do I have to accept it? Because this is the only job that I can do. So that job is that valued resource for me. So I will do anything in order to conserve that resource. And that influences my interpretation and acceptance of EL. So if my guests are rude, if my management doesn't care, if they are not facilitating the process of the coping mechanism, I can't help it because I don't have any other option. So that element of conservation resources, very much in line with the conservation of resources theory, is something that I came across as a dominant theme with respect to the interpretation of emotional labor. Then the fifth one is this: how does an individual interpret their own self-concept about themselves? So that is a key differentiator. For example, there were some hotel management graduates who have been working for 8 to 10 years. And then there were, as I said, 10th pass and 12th pass people as well, both men and women. So those who were, hotel management graduates, they were like, yeah, I have been trained for this particular kind of a job. So I always wanted to be here. It was a conscious decision on my part to do hotel management and then come into the industry. So I think this is what the demand of my job is, and I'm good with it because these are the uniqueness of my job. So I'll have to bear with it. Or rather, this is the idiosyncrasy of my job personified. So I'll have to deal with it. However, on the other side of the paradigm, with those 10th and 12th pass candidates, for them, it was more like, I don't have anything else to do. I'm such a lost soul. I'm in such a poor state. I can't help it. This is my destiny. I'll have to accept it. That's what makes me a loser. And this is the burden of loss that I will have to bear. So, the self-concept of the individual became a key differentiator in how they define EL, how they interpret EL in their own life work. So that also came across as an interesting theme in the entire process. Most importantly and significantly, the idea of organizational silence and its bidirectional nature. Now, when we look at the literature of organizational silence, it talks about how employees remain silent, whether it is acquiescence silence or any other form of silence that they resort to when they are not happy with something that with the organization. And they stop sharing their information, they stop sharing their efforts with the organization, they stop sharing their commitment with the organization as well. So that has been termed as organizational silence largely. But in here, the participants or the respondents, they say that, we are facing problems in coping with EL. It is creating a lot of havoc on us. We have to resort to presenteeism, but the organization is doing nothing. They know we are voicing our opinion, but they are silent. They are silent because they are driven by profit motive, and they don't want to rock the boat. So they say even their bit of silence is also killing us in some way or the other. So that gave us a notion that organization is a sum of employees and employers. So the idea of organizational silence should actually be bidirectional in nature. And definitely it works as a negative consequence with respect to emotional labor. So it adds its share of value on the already existing list of consequences of emotional labor, and definitely gives an impetus to the idea of organizational silence silence with its bidirectional nature. I'm currently working on a project, research paper, to elaborate this in a better way. The seventh theme is the coping mechanism. So everybody has their own way of coping with the negative consequences. Negative consequences being burnout, stress, emotional dissociation. Some of the participants said that, when I go back home, I don't feel like smiling at my family members. I don't feel like talking to them because I'm so exhausted. But some of them said that, okay, when I'm not in a good mood, when there's a lot of stuff, so I listen to bhajans. I look at Kapil Sharma show on my mobile, or probably I'll just do a quick video call and have a chat with my wife or my children, and that makes me calm down. So coping mechanism is very different. Some of them said that, the organization can have counseling sessions, they can have some relaxation mechanism. In fact, some of them said that they should monetize excellence in emotional labor behavior. They should monetize that as an incentive, so that will make me feel good and be more open to this idea. So coping mechanism is very differential, very divergent with respect to each and everyone's individual journey in the domain of EL. And the last and the theme, that is the presenteeism, makes its presence felt. Many of them narrated their stories that, yes, physically I'm here at work, but mentally I'm not at work. I am concerned about my parents. I'm concerned about the things that are happening at home, or I'm physically not doing well, but I have taken loads of medicine. I had to come because it's a celebration time, festival time. So, I need to be here. Whether or not I'm having my lunch break, it doesn't matter. I'll have to be at my, so somewhere they felt that, the futility of the effort that they put in, because ultimately it is about indifference of their organization that they take offense with. They're saying the organization is silent, and somewhere they remain indifferent to our perils to a certain extent or to a large extent. So that is not serving the purpose. And one of the participants said, and that is one of the key reasons for a high attrition rate and employee shortfall with respect to the hospitality industry. So that is one thing that came out in our work. So the insights that I could draw pertaining to the lived experience, I think I have mentioned all of them. I'll quickly move on to the implications for the decision makers that I think I have already had discussions with some of my friends who are in senior positions in the hospitality industry, and we are trying to work out something on that regard. However, presenteeism, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, presenteeism is a key issue with respect to the emotional labor and the overall silence from the organization. And also the low self-worth, the self-image that an individual has made for himself or herself, depending on their background, definitely plays a key role in this entire paradigm. So hospitality industry leaders somewhere need to take a look at how the things are managed at an individual enterprise level. What can be done to ensure that there is more open communication so that the employees don't feel that the organization is silent about their perils with respect to emotional labor. They should become more conscious about the silent thing and try to take certain actions. And many employees said that, there should be various forums where we could talk it out with our leadership, talk it out with our HR manager in a non-punitive way. So there should be various forums. They said even counseling sessions, group counseling sessions, individual counseling sessions should be organized from time to time. And also, there are very many people who actually do their 10th and 12th and directly come into the hospitality industry to serve as waiters. Organizations in some way or the other can provide some opportunity to the interested people to upgrade their educational qualifications. So that way the self-worth, the self-image element can be taken care of in some way or the other. And from my side, what I feel is there should be conscious effort to create awareness about emotional labor within the organization and creating emotional labor champions within the organization. This is something that I really feel that's something they should do, that they should have champions who would actually be able to counsel people and give provide the right kind of forum for people to cope and speak their mind and cope with it. And as one of the participants suggested, and my opinion also is that consider facilitating the monetization of exemplary EL performance. This can only happen if there is an acknowledgement and awareness that is created. in this entire domain. And then if they can actually go ahead and monetize the EL performance, that can definitely help the purpose. These are some of the published works that I got published with respect to my PhD work. So one was published in ABDC C-ranked journal. And the second one, the methodology paper, was the results paper were published in a Scopus Index Q1 journal, the TQR. So these are the two publications that I have had, and there are certain way ahead for my work, which I'm currently working upon. So that will be all. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now I remain open to questions. I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you very much for listening.